The afternoon was quiet and sunny, the kind of day that made people want to sit outside, enjoy a soft breeze, and forget about everything stressful for a while. Inside the small community center, there was a gentle buzz of activity. Kids ran around excitedly, parents chatted in low voices, and volunteers moved back and forth, making sure everything was in place. The room was decorated with bright balloons and colorful banners, and the smell of fresh popcorn and cookies filled the air. It was supposed to be a simple charity event, a day where people could come together, have fun, and maybe meet someone famous who was visiting for the cause. Keanu Reeves had agreed to make a short appearance, but he didn't want a huge crowd. He arrived quietly, almost unnoticed, walking through the back entrance. He wore a simple hoodie and a cap, trying to blend in, but even so, some people immediately recognized him. His presence caused a subtle stir, not loud screaming or chaos, just small gasps, excited whispers, and a few hurried whispers to take pictures. Keanu smiled politely and nodded, moving slowly through the room. He didn't seem in a rush. He stopped to greet a few people, shook hands, and signed a couple of things for the children. He had the calm, quiet energy of someone used to public attention but who preferred to give it a gentle touch rather than demanding it. Most of the children were too distracted by games and snacks to notice him right away. But one little boy, sitting near a small table in the corner, kept glancing nervously toward the door where Keanu had entered. He wasn't shy in the usual sense. He was the kind of boy who loved to explore and observe, but something made him unusually hesitant that day. His small hands fidgeted with the edge of the table, and his eyes darted toward the man walking through the room. He had been told to stay close to his parents, but curiosity and something deeper pushed him forward. Slowly, he stood up, took a small step, and then another, moving toward Keanu as if some invisible force was urging him to speak. Keanu noticed the boy approaching and crouched slightly, making himself smaller and less intimidating. His smile was warm, inviting the child to feel safe. The boy stopped just a few feet away, glancing down at his feet for a moment before finally looking up at Keanu. His eyes were wide, filled with a mixture of fear and determination. He opened his mouth, closed it, and then tried again. Finally, he whispered something. Keanu leaned closer, his expression calm but curious. He couldn't make out the words at first, but he could feel the urgency behind them. The boy's voice was quiet, barely audible over the soft chatter of the room. It wasn't a normal question about movies or asking for an autograph. It wasn't even about the snacks or the games. It was something else, something serious. Keanu's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in focused attention. He lowered himself to the boy's level, resting his hands gently on his knees, showing that he was listening and that whatever the boy had to say would be taken. Seriously, the boy leaned even closer and spoke a little louder this time. Still in a whisper, but now the words began to make sense. He said he had seen something unusual outside, something that didn't seem right. He didn't want to shout because he was afraid people might panic, but he felt it was important that someone responsible knew about it. Keanu nodded slowly, understanding immediately that the boy wasn't making a joke. There was a seriousness in his tone, a clarity that children don't always have. It was one of those moments where adults realize that sometimes the youngest voices can carry the most truth. Keanu kept his voice low and calm. He asked gentle questions, trying not to alarm anyone around them. "Can you show me where it is?" he asked quietly, and the boy nodded. He pointed toward the side of the building, near a small alley that was partially hidden from view. Keanu followed the direction with his eyes, scanning the area. He felt a strange mix of concern and responsibility. His face, usually so relaxed and composed in public appearances, began to change slightly. There was a tension there now, a seriousness that made anyone watching know that something important was happening. For the next few moments, Keanu listened carefully, letting the boy explain exactly what he had seen. The boy's words were careful, precise, and full of the innocence of a child trying to be responsible. He spoke of shadows moving where they shouldn't, of a strange bag left unattended, and of sounds that made him uneasy. Keanu's face slowly shifted from curiosity to concern. It was a gradual change, subtle at first, but unmistakable if someone was paying attention. His jaw tightened slightly, and as his eyes focused intensely on the spot the boy had described, Keanu realized quickly that this was not a situation to ignore. Even though nothing visible had yet happened, he could feel the urgency in the boy's words. He looked around the room, noticing that most people were still enjoying the event, unaware of the potential problem outside. He needed to act carefully. Panicking the crowd would create chaos, but ignoring the boy could be dangerous. Keanu's mind moved quickly. Considering the best way to handle the situation without alarming anyone, he gently placed a hand on the boy's shoulder and said, "Thank you for telling me. You did the right thing." The boy's eyes widened slightly at the praise, relief washing over his small face. It was clear that he had been afraid he might get in trouble for noticing something unusual. Keanu's reassurance helped calm him, but the tension in Keanu's own expression didn't disappear. He stood up slowly, keeping his voice quiet. Keanu excused himself to a staff member nearby, explaining that he needed to check something outside. He asked them to continue entertaining the guests and to keep everyone calm. He didn't raise his voice, didn't cause alarm. His movements were quiet, deliberate, and precise. He crouched down again briefly next to the boy, giving him one last reassuring look. "Stay right here? You're safe," he said softly, and the boy nodded. Gripping the edge of the table for comfort, even as he moved toward the exit, Keanu's mind was racing. He considered every possibility, every small detail the boy had mentioned. The quiet afternoon had transformed into a situation requiring vigilance and immediate action. His usual calm presence was now paired with an intensity that only a few people in the room could notice. He didn't panic, but his body language, the way he scanned the area and held his phone ready, showed that he was prepared to act. Meanwhile, the boy watched him leave, feeling a mixture of pride and anxiety. He had done something that mattered, something that could potentially prevent harm, and yet he couldn't fully understand the gravity of the situation. For him, it was simply about telling the truth, speaking up, and hoping someone responsible would listen. And Keanu had listened. He had taken the boy's words seriously, and that made all the difference. The room remained calm, the laughter and chatter continuing as if nothing unusual had happened. Parents kept their attention on the children, volunteers moved busily, and the music played softly in the background. But in that quiet corner, a small, heroic act had just occurred. A child had spoken up, and an adult had listened with full attention and care. That moment, brief and understated, was the beginning of a chain of events that could change everything. Keanu's face remained serious as he reached a more secluded area near the door. He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath, then slowly pulled out his phone. He knew he had to act quickly and wisely. The boy's words were not just a child's imagination. There was truth in them, and ignoring that truth was not an option. He dialed 911, keeping his voice low but clear, explaining the situation precisely. Every word was careful, every detail included. He didn't want to alarm anyone inside, but he wanted to make sure help would arrive immediately. As he spoke to the operator, he glanced back toward the room where the boy was waiting. The boy's small head peeked over the table, eyes wide and hopeful. Keanu gave a small nod, reassuring him that everything would be okay. In that instant, there was a quiet understanding between them. The boy had been brave enough to speak, and Keanu had been responsible enough to listen and take action. The rest of the afternoon seemed to hang in a delicate balance. Outside, the world continued as normal, but inside, the quiet heroism of a small boy and the calm, decisive action of a grown man had set something important into motion. It was a reminder that sometimes, even in the most ordinary moments, extraordinary things could happen. A whisper, a listening ear, and a willingness to act, that combination could make all the difference in the world. After listening carefully to the boy, Keanu Reeves felt a strange mix of concern and determination. The boy had whispered words that carried weight far beyond his small frame, words that told him something was seriously wrong just outside the building. Keanu didn't panic, but the usual calm smile he wore softened into a look of deep focus. He understood that he needed to take this seriously. Children don't often speak in such a direct and serious way about something dangerous unless they truly feel it. And Keanu knew instinctively that this wasn't just imagination or exaggeration. The boy pointed again toward an arrow. pathway on the side of the community center, near a small alley that was partially hidden behind bushes and a fence. He explained, in a voice that trembled slightly, that he had seen shadows moving where they shouldn't be and a small bag left unattended. He had been too scared to approach it himself, but he knew it might be dangerous. Keanu's eyes followed the boy's pointing finger, scanning the area from where he stood. He noticed the subtle details, a bag that looked out of place, slight movements that didn't belong in a quiet afternoon. Keanu bent down once more, speaking in a quiet and reassuring tone. "Thank you for telling me," he said softly. "You've done the right thing by speaking up. I need to check something, but you're going to stay right here and be safe, okay?" The boy nodded, gripping the edge of the table as if for comfort, feeling both nervous and proud. For the child, it was a strange feeling. He had just said something important, and it was being taken seriously by someone he admired. Keanu moved toward the door quietly, careful not to alarm anyone else in the room. He wanted to assess the situation before making any decisions, and he knew that keeping calm and discreet was the best way to do it. He didn't want the children to panic, and he didn't want the parents or volunteers to overreact. He had to handle this like a careful observer, calm, controlled, and precise. His steps were slow but deliberate as he reached a corner near the exit. He paused, crouched slightly to get a better view, and scanned the area outside the building. The moment was tense, even though no one else could see it. Keanu noticed small signs that something unusual might indeed be happening. The bag the boy had mentioned was sitting awkwardly near the bush. There were small shadows moving just beyond the alley, shapes that didn't belong in an ordinary quiet afternoon. He couldn't tell yet if it was dangerous, but his instincts told him that he had to act carefully and quickly. This was a test of observation, patience, and immediate decision-making. Keanu reached for his phone with one hand while keeping his other hand free to signal or guide if needed. He dialed 911, keeping his voice low but clear. He described the situation in precise, calm words, the location, the objects the boy had noticed, and the small movements that seemed unusual. While speaking, he kept his eyes trained on the area, noticing even the smallest details, a bag partially hidden in shadows, the flutter of leaves in a corner, and the quiet, cautious movements of someone passing by. The dispatcher on the other line asked questions, and Keanu answered each one carefully. He explained what the boy had seen, the exact spot near the building, and why he felt it was necessary to get professional help immediately. Every word was deliberate. He didn't exaggerate or speculate. He simply reported the facts as calmly and clearly as possible. Even in his quiet voice, there was urgency. The dispatcher assured him that help was on the way, and Keanu acknowledged the instructions, keeping his attention divided between the phone and the area outside. Meanwhile, back inside the community center, the boy sat quietly. He could feel something serious happening, even though he didn't fully understand all the details. He had done his part, he had spoken up when he saw something wrong, and now he was waiting, trusting that the adult in front of him would handle the situation. For the child, it was a moment of anxiety mixed with pride. He had learned that sometimes even a small voice can make a big difference. Especially when someone listens carefully and acts responsibly. Keanu kept scanning the outside area, noticing small details that could easily be missed by someone less experienced. The shadows he had seen earlier moved slightly, but they weren't aggressive or threatening yet. Still, he remained alert. He knew that assessing the situation fully before approaching was the only safe way to act. His calm demeanor hid the tension he felt inside. He understood that panic could make things worse, but awareness and careful action could prevent trouble. As he waited for emergency responders to arrive, Keanu walked slowly along the edge of the building, keeping the boy in sight at all times. He moved in a way that was natural and unobtrusive, making sure no one else noticed anything unusual. He even spoke softly to himself, double-checking every observation and planning his next steps. His focus was intense, but his movements were careful and unhurried. He had learned from experience that calm observation often prevented mistakes in situations that could become dangerous. A few minutes later, the sound of sirens became faintly audible in the distance. Keanu's eyes flicked toward the approaching emergency vehicles, and he felt a sense of relief. He continued speaking quietly into the phone, giving additional details to the dispatcher as needed. He explained the exact location, the position of the objects, and why it might require attention. The dispatcher thanked him, noting that a team would arrive immediately. Keanu hung up and continued observing the scene, making sure nothing changed before the professionals reached the area, inside the community center. The boy had been watching Keanu's actions with fascination. He saw how calm the man was, how seriously he took his words, and how carefully he moved. The boy had never imagined that speaking up could lead to something so important. He felt proud, even though he still felt a little nervous. Keanu's attention and care had shown him that adults could be trustworthy, and that sometimes bravery meant simply speaking the truth and letting someone responsible take action. Keanu glanced back toward the boy and gave a small, reassuring nod. It was a silent message. You did well. Stay safe. Help is coming. The boy smiled faintly, feeling reassured, while his small hands still clutched the table. For both of them, this quiet exchange was a moment of connection, a reminder that trust, courage, and responsibility can come from unexpected places. As the emergency vehicles arrived outside, Keanu stepped aside to let the professionals do their work. He explained briefly what the boy had seen, pointing toward the exact location. The responders moved quickly, assessing the scene with trained eyes. Keanu stayed nearby but kept a safe distance, giving the experts space to do their jobs. His calm presence helped the responders focus and act efficiently. The boy watched from the window, his curiosity mixed with awe. He saw how adults could work together, follow instructions, and handle situations carefully. It was a lesson in responsibility and patience, waiting, trusting, and observing until the right action could be taken. For a child, it was an experience that would stay with him for a long time, teaching him the importance of speaking up, being brave, and trusting that good people will listen. Keanu stayed until the area was secured and the situation was confirmed to be safe. Once he was satisfied, he walked back toward the community center, his expression softening once again. Inside, the boy ran up, a little anxious and a little excited, asking if everything was okay. Keanu crouched down, smiling gently, and told him that he had done an excellent job. He explained that sometimes noticing something unusual and speaking up can prevent problems before they start. The boy beamed with pride. For him, the day had turned into something extraordinary. A quiet whisper, a careful listener, and responsible action had created a chain of events that taught him the value of courage, honesty, and calm thinking. Keanu's reaction had shown him that adults could be heroes too, and that even the smallest voice can make a big difference. When someone listens carefully, the rest of the afternoon continued quietly, with games, laughter, and conversations returning to normal. But for the boy and for Keanu, the day had changed. It had become a story about bravery, observation, and the importance of paying attention to small details. A quiet afternoon had turned into a lesson that would stay with them both, a reminder that listening, acting carefully, and trusting each other can make a difference in ways no one could expect. And in that moment, both the boy and Keanu knew something important. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers quietly and waits for someone responsible to act. Keanu Reeves stood quietly near the edge of the building, his eyes carefully scanning the area where the boy had said he saw something unusual. The afternoon sun was soft, casting long shadows across the small alley and bush, making it harder to see clearly. Even so, Keanu's focus never wavered. He had learned from experience that calm observation often revealed details that others might miss. Every movement, every sound, and every shadow mattered. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on him, but he didn't let it show. He remained calm, deliberate, and ready to act. Keanu moved slowly, keeping his body low and unobtrusive. He didn't want anyone nearby to notice that something was happening. Inside the community center, children were still laughing, parents were talking quietly, and volunteers were managing games and snacks. No one had any idea that just outside, something serious might be unfolding. Keanu knew that keeping the situation discreet was important. He also knew that the little boy had been brave enough to speak up, and it was his job to ensure the boy's words were taken seriously. Keanu took a deep breath and crouched slightly, looking over the fence and down the narrow alley. The bag the boy had described was still there, sitting oddly among the bush, partially hidden by shadows. He noticed other small details too, slight movements, a flicker of something that didn't belong, and a quiet hum of tension in the air. He knew he had to act carefully, step by step, to make sure nothing escalated. There was no room for panic, no room for mistakes. Pulling out his phone again, Keanu spoke quietly to the 911 operator. He gave a calm and detailed explanation of the situation, repeating key points about the location, the bag, and the movements he had seen. He stayed on the line until the dispatcher confirmed that emergency responders were on their way. As he spoke, he never took his eyes off the alley. Every sound, every shadow, every small detail mattered. He was a trained observer in that moment, focusing fully on ensuring that everyone would be safe. Once he ended the call, Keanu knew he needed to take control of the situation until help arrived. He couldn't leave the area unattended, and he couldn't allow anyone else to wander into a potentially dangerous space. He moved slowly, carefully, staying out of view from the public areas while positioning himself so he could monitor the alley and the bag. His movements were quiet, precise, and deliberate, the kind of calm confidence that comes from knowing exactly what must be done. Keanu then thought about the boy. He had done the right thing by speaking up, but now he needed to stay somewhere safe, away from the possible danger. Keanu walked back inside the community center, moving slowly so as not to alarm anyone. The boy was still sitting near the table, eyes wide as he watched Keanu approach. Keanu crouched to the boy's level and spoke in a soft, reassuring tone. "You've been very brave," he said. "I need you to stay right here. Don't worry, help is coming and you're safe." The boy nodded, holding tightly to the edge of the table, feeling both nervous and proud at the same time. After making sure the boy was safe, Keanu returned outside. The emergency vehicles were still a few minutes away, and he needed to maintain vigilance. He continued scanning the area, noticing the smallest changes. The bag hadn't moved, and the shadows remained in place, but he could sense the tension in the air. His instincts told him to stay alert, to observe every detail, and to be ready to act if needed. He walked slowly along the edge of the building, keeping a clear line of sight on the alley while staying out of view from the community center. Keanu's mind worked quickly, planning the next steps. He needed to make sure the responders would have clear access and that the boy and other visitors would remain safe. He positioned himself near the entrance to the alley, quietly making mental notes of obstacles, possible hiding spots, and the best way to guide the emergency team. He moved with quiet authority, not rushing, not panicking, but fully prepared to act at the right moment. Every few seconds, Keanu glanced back at the community center to check on the boy. The child's small face peeked from behind the table, watching him with a mix of curiosity and trust. Keanu gave him a small nod, a silent reassurance that everything would be okay. The boy felt safe knowing that someone responsible was handling the situation. That quiet trust between them created a moment of connection, a reminder that courage and responsibility can exist in every age, in every size, and in every whisper that is taken seriously. As the first emergency vehicles arrived, Keanu stepped aside to let the responders assess the situation. He quietly approached the team, giving them the details that only someone who had observed carefully could provide. He described the bag, the movements, and the boy's observations. The responders listened carefully, appreciating his calm and detailed explanation. Keanu stayed close but gave them room to work. He guided them to the exact spot, pointing out the small details that could help them understand the scene quickly. The boy watched from the window, amazed at how adults could coordinate and act responsibly. He saw that calm observation, careful communication, and quick thinking could prevent problems before they started. He realized that bravery wasn't just about bold actions or loud statements. Sometimes it was about speaking quietly, observing carefully, and acting responsibly. Seeing Keanu handle the situation gave him a new understanding of courage, responsibility, and the importance of listening carefully, Keanu remained outside, continuing to monitor the scene until the responders confirmed that the area was safe. He made sure no one else could accidentally enter the alley and that the bag and surrounding area were secure. He spoke quietly with the responders, answering their questions and providing extra details. His calm presence allowed them to focus and act efficiently, minimizing the risk to everyone involved. Once everything was under control, Keanu walked back toward the community center. Inside, the boy ran to him, a mixture of worry and excitement on his face. Keanu crouched down and spoke gently, praising the boy for his bravery. "You did something very important today," he said. "You spoke up when you saw something unusual, and you helped keep everyone safe. That's very brave." The boy's eyes shone with pride. For him, the day had become unforgettable, a lesson in courage, honesty, and the power of speaking up. Keanu took a moment to reflect on the events of the afternoon. He realized how small actions could create significant impact. A whisper from a child, a careful observation, and responsible action from an adult had turned a potentially worrying situation into a lesson in bravery and teamwork. He looked around the community center, seeing parents, children, and volunteers continuing with their day, unaware of how close they had come to danger. The quiet heroism of the boy and the careful action of Keanu had prevented any harm and ensured the day could continue safely. The boy followed Keanu around, asking small questions, curious about what had happened. Keanu answered gently, keeping his explanations simple and appropriate for a child. He explained that noticing something unusual and speaking up could prevent problems, and that adults could act responsibly when given the right information. The boy listened carefully, understanding for the first time that his small actions could have a real impact on the world around him. As the afternoon went on, the event continued normally. Children played games, parents chatted, and volunteers managed the food and activities. But for the boy and Keanu, the day had changed. It had become a story of bravery, observation, and careful action. It was a reminder that even small voices, when heard by someone responsible, could create safety, understanding, and trust. Keanu took one last look outside, ensuring everything was secure, and then returned fully to the community center. He walked over to the boy, crouched down, and smiled. "You did a very brave thing today," he said softly. The boy smiled back, feeling proud and reassured. For both of them, the afternoon had become more than just a charity event. It had become a lesson in courage, responsibility, and the importance of acting carefully when faced with uncertainty. Even as the laughter and chatter of the event continued, a quiet sense of accomplishment filled the room. The boy had learned the value of speaking up, and Keanu had demonstrated the power of calm, responsible action. Together, they had turned a tense situation into a lesson that would stay with both of them for a long time. And in that moment, both understood something important. Bravery is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, thoughtful, and deliberate, and it can make all the difference in the world. The faint sound of sirens grew louder as the emergency vehicles arrived, moving carefully through the quiet streets surrounding the community center. Keanu Reeves stayed close to the alley, keeping an eye on everything while remaining calm and composed. The small bag and the unusual shadows that the boy had described were still there, waiting silently for the professionals to arrive. Keanu felt a mixture of relief and vigilance, relief because help was finally here, and vigilance because he knew he couldn't relax until the responders had fully assessed the situation. The emergency responders stepped out of their vehicles with a quiet efficiency. They didn't rush, but every movement showed experience and precision. Keanu approached them calmly, explaining everything that the boy had seen. He described the bag, the odd shadows, and the details he had observed while keeping a safe distance from the alley. The responders listened carefully, appreciating the calm, clear way Keanu communicated. His focus and preparation made it easier for them to understand the situation quickly. Keanu guided the responders to the exact spot the boy had described. He pointed out the bag hidden in the bush and the small area where the shadows had moved. The professionals moved in with caution, checking every corner and inspecting the bag carefully. Keanu stayed nearby, but he made sure to give them space to work without interference. His presence was quiet but steady, a reassuring figure for both the boy and anyone else who might have noticed the activity inside the community center. The boy watched through a window, barely able to contain his curiosity. His heart raced as he saw the emergency responders moving with purpose and precision. He felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. The day had started as a simple charity event, but now it had transformed into a moment of real importance. He realized that his quiet whisper had set all of this into motion. By speaking up, he had made a real difference. And now he could see the impact of his actions unfolding right before him. Keanu spoke softly to one of the responders, answering questions and pointing out subtle details that could help them understand the scene. Every movement, every observation, every explanation mattered. He described the exact location, the timing of what the boy had seen, and the small details about the bag and surrounding area. The professionals moved efficiently, checking every possibility and taking every precaution. Keanu's calm guidance ensured that nothing was overlooked. While the responders worked, Keanu kept an eye on the boy. The child's small hands were pressed against the glass as he watched the activity outside. Keanu gave him a reassuring nod and a small smile. The boy felt a sense of pride and relief. His actions had been taken seriously, and now he could see the adults handling the situation responsibly. For him, it was a lesson in trust, courage, and the importance of paying attention to small details. The responders carefully examined the bag, checking it for anything unusual or dangerous. Keanu stayed close, observing every step of the process. He noticed how calm and methodical they were, how they followed protocol without causing unnecessary alarm. His own experience in handling tense situations helped him remain composed, even as the scene outside could have been tense for anyone else. He knew that staying calm and providing clear information was the best way to help. Minutes passed, and Keanu continued to guide the responders, answering their questions and ensuring that every angle was covered. His presence was quiet but crucial. He provided the observations that only someone who had been watching carefully could notice. The shadows and movements the boy had described were confirmed to be harmless, ordinary things that looked unusual from a distance. The bag was checked and cleared, and the responders confirmed that there was no danger. Keanu's careful observation and quick action had helped them work efficiently and safely inside the community center. The boy finally let out a small sigh of relief. He had been anxious for the past several minutes, worried that he might have overreacted or caused unnecessary trouble. But seeing the professionals arrive, listening to Keanu's calm guidance, and watching everything being handled responsibly reassured him. He realized that speaking up had been the right choice, and his courage had made a real difference in ensuring everyone's safety. Keanu returned inside the building once the scene was secured. He walked directly to the boy, crouched down, and gave him a warm, reassuring smile. "You did something very important today," he said gently. "You spoke up when you noticed something unusual, and because of you, everyone stayed safe. That was very brave of you." The boy's eyes lit up and a small smile appeared on his face. He felt proud, relieved, and understood all at once. The boy's parents, who had been inside the community center during the entire event, came over after seeing the responders outside. They were curious and a little confused, asking what had happened. Keanu explained calmly, without causing alarm, what the boy had seen and how the situation had been handled. The parents were amazed and proud of their child. They realized that their son had shown responsibility, courage, and quick thinking, traits that were extraordinary for someone so young. The volunteers and other guests, who had been largely unaware of the situation, continued with the event, still enjoying the afternoon. For most people, it seemed like a normal day. But for the boy and Keanu, the afternoon had turned into a memorable lesson in courage, observation, and responsibility. They had learned that even quiet actions, when taken seriously, could prevent problems and ensure safety. Keanu took a moment to reflect on the situation. A simple whisper from a child had alerted him to something unusual. His calm response and careful communication had allowed emergency responders to assess the scene efficiently. Together, the small boy and the adult had ensured that everyone remained safe and that no one panicked. It was a quiet moment of heroism, one that didn't require loud action or dramatic gestures, but that made a lasting impact. The boy stayed close to Keanu for the rest of the afternoon, asking small questions and learning about the importance of speaking up and observing carefully. Keanu answered patiently, using simple words and examples that the boy could understand. He explained that sometimes noticing small details, reporting them responsibly, and trusting adults to act could prevent accidents or problems. The boy listened carefully, absorbing the lesson with wide, curious eyes. As the event continued, Keanu made sure that the boy remained safe and that the parents were reassured. He even spent a few moments engaging with the other children, keeping the atmosphere light and normal so that no one else felt anxious or concerned. His presence was calm and steady, a reminder to everyone that responsibility and care could be demonstrated quietly, without creating unnecessary fear. By the end of the afternoon, the situation had fully resolved. The emergency responders had left, the bag was no longer a concern, and the area outside the building was safe. The boy felt proud and confident, knowing that his actions had helped. Keanu smiled, realizing that the day had been about more than just an event. It had been a lesson in bravery, trust, and careful attention to detail before leaving. Keanu crouched down one final time to speak with the boy. "Remember this moment," he said softly. "You were brave, responsible, and thoughtful. That's something very special. Always trust your instincts and always speak up when something doesn't feel right. You made a real difference today." The boy nodded, his small face filled with pride and admiration. He knew he had learned something important, a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life. The rest of the guests continued enjoying the day, unaware of the seriousness of what had happened just outside. But for Keanu and the boy, the afternoon had been extraordinary. A simple whisper, careful observation, and responsible action had prevented potential danger. The quiet heroism of a small child and the calm, steady response of an adult had created a lasting impact, teaching both the value of courage and the importance of listening carefully to those who speak up, even as the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long, warm shadows across the community center. The lesson of the day remained clear. Bravery doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers quietly in the right ear, and when that whisper is heard, it can create safety, understanding, and trust. Keanu Reeves had seen that firsthand, and the little boy had learned it in the most meaningful way possible. Together, they had turned a normal afternoon into a story of courage, responsibility, and human connection. The boy walked beside Keanu as they watched the final moments of the event. He had learned that small actions could lead to big results, and that speaking up, even in a quiet voice, could change outcomes. Keanu had shown him that adults could act responsibly and carefully, ensuring safety and calm. In that moment, both realized that sometimes the smallest voices, when taken seriously, could make the biggest difference. The afternoon had finally begun to settle into a calm, peaceful rhythm. The emergency responders had left, the bag outside was confirmed to be harmless, and the community center returned to its cheerful, lively atmosphere. Children laughed and ran between tables, parents quietly chatted, and the volunteers continued serving snacks and organizing games. It looked like any ordinary day, but for the little boy and Keanu Reeves, the day had become extraordinary. A chain of events had unfolded that would stay with them both for a long time. The boy was still sitting at the corner table where he had first whispered to Keanu. He felt a mix of relief, pride, and curiosity. His small chest rose and fell as he tried to calm the nervous energy he had been carrying all afternoon. He had done something very important, and now he could see the results of his actions. Keanu had taken him seriously, acted responsibly, and ensured that help arrived quickly. The boy realized that bravery was not always about doing something loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was about noticing, speaking up, and trusting that the right people would listen. Keanu approached the boy, crouching down to meet him at eye level. "You did something amazing today," he said gently, his voice calm and sincere. "You noticed something unusual and told me about it. Because of you, we were able to handle the situation quickly and safely." That was very brave. The boy's eyes widened, a mix of surprise and pride washing over him. He had expected maybe a smile or a nod, but not such heartfelt praise from someone he admired so much. The boy's parents had also come closer, curious about what had happened. They had seen the emergency vehicles and the quiet urgency in Keanu's actions, but didn't yet know the full story. Keanu explained simply, without causing alarm, what the boy had noticed and how it had been handled. The parents were amazed and overwhelmed with pride. Their child, so small and often quiet, had shown incredible courage. They hugged him tightly, whispering words of love and pride, and the boy felt a warmth spread through him. A mixture of relief and happiness, Keanu suggested a small gesture of recognition, something simple that would make the boy feel appreciated. He asked if the child would like to take a picture together. The boy's face lit up immediately, his nerves fading into excitement. They posed together, the camera capturing the moment of bravery, responsibility, and connection. It was more than a photo, it was a memory, a reminder that small actions could create meaningful change. For the boy, this moment would stay with him forever, a story he could tell with pride for years to come. After the photo, Keanu spent a few moments talking to the boy quietly, explaining the importance of observation and communication. "Always trust what you see and feel," he said softly. "If something seems unusual or unsafe, tell someone you trust. Speaking up can make a big difference, and today it made a difference for everyone here." The boy nodded, absorbing the lesson. He realized that courage was not always loud, and responsibility could be shown even through a quiet whisper. The volunteers and staff continued the event, now more aware of the importance of careful attention and communication. They praised the boy quietly, letting him know that his actions had been significant. Other children, noticing the attention, began asking questions, curious about what had happened. Keanu, still calm and approachable, explained in simple terms how the boy had helped. He didn't exaggerate, he didn't dramatize, he simply told the truth, showing everyone that responsibility and courage could come from anyone. No matter how small, parents began to gather around the boy, asking him to explain in his own words what he had noticed. He described the shadows, the bag, and the small details that had made him uneasy. Keanu listened carefully, encouraging him to speak clearly. The boy's voice grew stronger with each word, and a sense of confidence settled over him. He realized that his quiet observation had been taken seriously and that speaking up had created safety and understanding. It was a powerful lesson in accountability and self-assurance. As the day continued, Keanu took a few moments to reflect on the events. He realized that moments like this were rare moments, when the actions of a small child and a responsible adult combined to prevent potential problems. It was a reminder that everyday courage could come in unexpected forms. A whisper from a child, careful listening, and calm action from an adult could create a chain of events that ensured safety and taught lasting lessons. The boy's parents thanked Keanu warmly, their gratitude heartfelt. They knew their child had learned something extraordinary that day, and they were grateful for Keanu's guidance and calm handling of the situation. The boy, feeling proud, smiled up at Keanu, realizing he had made a real difference. For him, the lesson was clear: paying attention, speaking up, and trusting responsible adults could change outcomes in important ways. Keanu encouraged the boy to continue paying attention to the world around him, to trust his instincts, and to never underestimate the power of small actions. "You've shown bravery today," he said softly. "Remember this moment and carry it with you. You'll be surprised how often paying attention and speaking up can make a difference." The boy nodded, feeling inspired and empowered by the guidance of someone he admired and trusted. The community center slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Children laughed, parents continued conversations, and volunteers managed the activities with renewed energy. But the boy and Keanu shared a quiet understanding, a connection that went beyond the day's events. They had both been part of something meaningful. The boy had demonstrated courage, and Keanu had shown the importance of calm, responsible action. Together they had created a moment that was unforgettable, A story of bravery and trust that could inspire anyone who heard it. As the afternoon turned into early evening, Keanu walked the boy and his parents to the exit. He reminded them one last time to always pay attention to their surroundings and to speak up if something felt unusual. The boy held his hand tightly, feeling a sense of security and pride. He knew he had learned an important lesson, a lesson about responsibility, courage, and human connection. Keanu smiled, knowing that moments like these were rare but meaningful. They didn't need to be dramatic or loud to have a lasting impact. The boy's parents thanked Keanu once more, expressing their gratitude not just for his presence at the event, but for the way he had handled a tense situation calmly and responsibly. Keanu nodded humbly, brushing it off with his usual quiet charm, but inside he felt a sense of fulfillment. Today had been more than a charity appearance. It had been a reminder of why listening, observing, and acting responsibly mattered so much in everyday life. Before leaving, Keanu knelt down one last time to speak to the boy. "Always remember that courage comes in many forms," he said gently. "Sometimes it whispers quietly. Sometimes it waits for someone to listen. Today, your whisper made a real difference, and that's something to be proud of forever." The boy smiled, his small face glowing with pride and understanding. He realized that bravery didn't have to be loud or dramatic. It could be quiet, thoughtful, and still powerful enough to make a lasting impact. As Keanu walked away, the boy watched him go, a mixture of admiration, inspiration, and gratitude filling his heart. He understood that ordinary people, even children, could play extraordinary roles in ensuring safety and helping others. He had learned that responsibility and courage were not just adult qualities, they could belong to anyone, and small voices could matter more than anyone imagined. By the time the community center began to empty, the day had transformed into something remarkable. What had started as a simple charity event had become a story of bravery, human connection, and the importance of listening carefully. The boy had learned that his voice mattered, and Keanu had demonstrated the value of calm, responsible action. Together they had created a memory that would last a lifetime. A quiet, powerful reminder that small actions, careful observation, and trust in one another could make a huge difference in the world. Even as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the playground and the streets, the lesson remained clear. Bravery is not always loud, and courage does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits for someone responsible to listen and act. The boy had whispered, Keanu had listened, and together they had ensured that everyone remained safe. It was a story of quiet heroism, one that reminded everyone that even the smallest voices can have the greatest impact. And in the end, the boy understood something more important than anything else. Paying attention, speaking up, and trusting those who act responsibly can create a ripple effect of courage and safety. He felt proud, inspired, and ready to carry this lesson into every part of his life. And Keanu Reeves, walking back to his car at the edge of the quiet streets, knew that this simple afternoon had been extraordinary, a reminder that true heroism often comes from small, thoughtful actions and from believing that even the quietest voice can make a difference.